I lost nearly 40 inches from my legs over 18 months between GLP-1 medication and my recent lipedema surgery. Now, 80% of my results came from just one of those, and only 20% from the other. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly which modality did what and why the answer to GLP-1 versus surgery for lipedema might surprise you. Hi, I'm Holly. Welcome back to my channel, Lipedema. In today's video, I'm going to share with you a little bit of a catch up since I did my lipedema surgery on my legs on the 31st of March. Now we're about 3.5 months into the future from that, and I can tell you kind of where I am, what's happened, what I think really worked and what didn't, and something kind of surprising. All right, let's get to it. All right, so today, 3.5 months post-op, I'm actually getting ready to go to the pool, and I wanted to touch bases with you because going to the pool is like such a big deal for me. One of the things I was worried about before my surgery was how long I was going to be losing out of my summer because, we don't live long in my family, and I feel like I only have so many summers left, and I want to optimize all of them. So I tried to do my surgery to keep me on like the sort of earlier side of summer so that hopefully I could be able to be on a beach by the time my birthday rolled around in June. So did I make the cutoff? Ish. But the important thing is that I'm feeling great now. I'm really starting to feel more like myself. And I got to say, for a minute there, I really didn't. So I don't know, like once you get past the pain, once you get past like swell hell, all of those things, I feel like there was still like a mental component where I don't know if it was because I was constantly taking Motrin or if I just wasn't sleeping well because, I was uncomfortable after surgery, or just the constant sort of reminder of the surgery. Even if it wasn't exactly pain, there was always like this sort of, I don't know, like just an irritation that I was constantly aware of. And I think you can actually call it pain. I just feel like maybe for folks who've had lipedema all their lives, like our bar for pain is a little bit different. This is just a really odd feeling that kind of takes up some mental space. I guess that's one way to describe it. And I'm just now getting to the point where I'm really not thinking about my legs all the time. I always have a few times during the day, especially in the evening, where I'm like hyper aware of my legs. But I find that most of the day now, I'm really just going about my life as usual with compression. And that part hasn't changed, right? So right now, I don't have compression on because I'm getting ready to go to the pool and I feel fine. And I'll be out of compression for probably another few hours. And I think that'll be great. But then I'm going to like wrap it back up, zip it up tight with a couple of layers of compression. And then I do tend to feel better when that happens, in addition to the swelling being reduced. It also just kind of makes me feel a little more secure. I feel a little bit like a bag of bones kind of when I don't have my compression on, but I'm hoping I'll get used to that the more and more I'm kind of I'm going around without it versus wearing it. Okay. So a lot of people know that I lost weight when I was on Wegovy over the course of about 10 months. Now I've been on there for, almost 2 years on the medication, right? But I will say this, I've really plateaued on my weight loss and happily plateaued, right? There was a point of time where I wasn't sure about how I was going to be able to stay on the medication and not continue to lose in a bad way because I was just not very good at adulting. I don't know how else to describe it. It just was really, really hard for me to force myself to eat the right amount of protein, to force myself to eat the right amount of food overall, just because I was really suffering with a lot of the sort of nausea and some of the side effects, right? I've gotten better at that, and I've really focused on maintaining the weight because I knew that if I went too low, my doc told me, if you get to 150 or below, then we're going to have to look at taking you off this medication, and I didn't want that. So I've been working hard to stabilize, and I would say right now I'm kind of just about at that like between 165 and 155 is kind of where I've balanced out, and that's great. It also figures into kind of like my surprise at sort of what's happened as a result of the weight loss medication versus my surgery. Kind of interesting, right? So on the Wegovy journey for at least 10 months, I lost 100 pounds. And that means a lot of inches across all of my body. Now, it's been a real like roller coaster ride. One of the things that I would say is that, lipedema kind of determined where I lost weight and where I didn't. I knew that I had regular fat in the same areas where I have my lipedema fat. And for the folks who have seen my channel, then you'll know that lipedema is a painful condition where abnormal fat deposits can cause swelling, bruising, and pain in your legs, arms, and then sometimes in your trunk, depending on your stage and type. And honestly, it can also cause a lot of gaslighting because everyone around you wants to tell you what you need to do to get your legs or your arms in the right shape, and they don't recognize that lipedema fat really just doesn't respond to normal weight loss and exercise. I know it. I was in the Army for more than 22 years. I've done multiple marathons in my life, and nothing ever impacted my legs. Also, my legs bruised constantly, and I was always wondering, like, what's different about me, until I first saw someone with lipedema. And I think it was on like Facebook somewhere where they had gone to have liposuction for lipedema. And I looked at the before picture of those legs and was like, moment of realization, that's what I have. Now, when I got diagnosed with lipedema, one of the things that they told me about the areas that where I have it, which is in the arms and the legs, right? And up on my upper hip. One of the things that they told me is that I would need probably 5 to 6 surgeries, either concentrated on inner thighs, inner legs, and outer upper thigh, or going lowers and then uppers, or backs and then fronts. A series of surgeries and a lot of recovery time, and also a lot of cheddar. These surgeries are really expensive. Now, I'm lucky enough that my insurance would cover my surgery, but even that, I feel like a lot of people really struggle to get insurance to cover everything, and sometimes you can't find the doctor that you want who's willing to accept that insurance. I got lucky on a couple of different aspects there, but it was in my mind going into this that I could be facing up to $100,000 in surgery costs alone. A lot of the different forums that I'm in, like where I see people who had to pay out of pocket for this, they go over that, and it is crazy to get the results. And the results that they want, this is not cosmetic results. We're talking about just a reduction in the amount of pain and bruising and swelling, and also getting back their lives, like being able to have the mobility again to go out and do the things that we used to do when we were younger, the things that helped us stay at healthy weights. All right. So, and that's, of course, you also have to deal on the back end of that with the fact that, you've had this lipedema condition for probably a lot of your life. I'm 52 years old. A lot of people who are my age or older, we definitely struggle with the elasticity in our skin. So this is as far from a cosmetic procedure as you can kind of get, if you take my drift on that. I'm not going to say that I hate the results that I have cosmetically. I think my doc did a great job, but there's definitely something to wrap your mind around because it's not the same as it was. And my skin elasticity, because of the lipedema, is just not what I would hope it would be. But that's okay. I'm going to hit the sauna. I'm going to continue to work out, and we're going to see some improvements. I know that's coming. Plus, I have a really, really great manual lymphatic drainage professional who's helped me and given me tips about like taping, things like that, to help with my skin elasticity and the results that I want visually to help complement what's happened physiologically for me. Okay, so how did the Wegovy, which, 100 pounds, like what was the inches lost from that? Like what were those inches? I actually did measurements across the entire journey. And so I measured myself from my mid thigh to my knees, to my calves, to my ankles. I took all of those measurements and I started laying them out on my left side and my right side over the course of those 10 months, and then got the totals. And here's what I found. I lost 31 inches when you add up all of those inches lost across both of my legs, 31 inches just from my GLP-1 medication. I think that's crazy. It's something that kind of blows my mind. Now, the problem, of course, is that the lipedema decides where you lose the fat and where you don't, because it didn't come off of my legs. I actually lost 3 times faster in those other areas, and honestly, it gotten to the point where I didn't have any more weight to lose in some of my areas. In fact, I definitely lost weight that I did not want to lose in my chest, in my peduncadunk, in a lot of different areas, right? And that was the challenge that I had when I was talking with my trainer, where he was like, "No, we're going to get it off." And I'm like, "No, you got to understand, this is lipedema. We can work out all we want on these legs, and they're going to look the same." And it was only after months of being with my trainer that he finally was like, "Yeah, I think it's going to have to be the surgery." And that's one of the reasons that I made the decision to do surgery. So the question, what did I lose from an inches perspective if I measured in the exact same places, which I did, from my lipedema surgery, which involves liposuction of those areas where the lipedema is in a much more targeted approach, right? It didn't hit any of the areas that I didn't want it to. It only focused on the areas where I had lipedema. And I'll tell you, it's kind of surprising. So 31 inches from GLP medication alone, I lost 8.5 inches due to my lipedema surgery. All right, so let's talk about that 8.5 inches, right? So that's 8.5 inches when my weight stayed otherwise the same. So very targeted, only in the areas that I needed it. It was also 8.5 inches as of right now, because I expect to still lose more. I still got some swelling going on, particularly on the inner part of my calves, a lot of swelling there. So I know that my results are going to get a little bit better, and I'm going to see I'm going to lose more of those inches. So I expect that 8.5 is a conservative estimate of what I'm going to lose. What else about the 8.5 inches that I lost there that I think is amazing is that she doesn't really have much more to get. And this is the part that's really important. Remember earlier when I said after my first diagnosis, they told me I'd need 5 to 6 surgeries? Well, the good news is because I lost all of that weight on my GLP-1 medication, because if I'm honest, a lot of my lippy sisters and myself, we've all struggled with regular weight gain as well because the lipedema limits our mobility and we're just not able to be as active as we used to be. So in that other weight that I needed to lose, I was able to take all of that off, which meant that when it was time for my lipedema surgery, she could be really targeted and she knew exactly where she was going because it was so fibrotic and so condensed at that point because the fat, the other healthy fat around it was really largely gone. She was able to get in right where she needed to go. So very targeted approach. And that leaves me wondering which is better. 80% of my inches lost came from the GLP-1 medication, and only about 20% came from the actual surgery. So which one is better? Like, it seems like the GLP-1 medication is amazing, but I have to tell you, it didn't necessarily help in the areas where I needed it to help, and it didn't impact my bruising. And I have to say, surprisingly, it did help with some of the pain. Not a lot, but some. And that's because Wegovy seems to have this anti-inflammatory effect, which it was a wonderful benefit that I didn't expect when I first went on the medication. So while the GLP-1 medication can help with that, it's also medication I'll continue to have to take, just like, if you're on blood pressure medication for the rest of my life. Now, the sad part is that, insurance coverage for this medication has been really tricky. And so I do worry that at one point I'm not going to be able to get it, or someone's going to say that I don't have access to it anymore because I don't need it. This has actually happened. Another insurance nightmare. I'll talk to you about it later in a different video. So what does that mean then for surgery? Is surgery the right answer for the people who did all surgery and no GLP-1? Is that better? Actually, I have to say surgery was tough. I am 52 years old, so I don't bounce back nearly as quickly as I used to, but I had a pretty problem-free surgery. Swell hell was no joke. I tried to go into it with an optimistic mindset, but I have to tell you, it was rough. And there was quite a lot of depression that went with all of that compression. Sometimes I felt like I was in a Mexican wrestling costume, right? And that was how I had to go to work and show up to all of my meetings and kind of just have this noise in the back of my head the entire time of feeling a little bit ridiculous, but also uncomfortable and also just in pain. It was a lot of time that I had to take away from work. It was lost productivity. It was just a lot of pain. It was a lot of worrying about what the results were going to be, if I was going to get infected, just a lot of things that were a mental stress to me. So I don't know which one is better. Maybe that's the wrong answer. Maybe it's not lipedema surgery versus GLP-1, but thinking about how to marry the two so that you can get the best impact for you. Because for me, I did need more than just the targeted fat loss because of the mobility issues that I had from my lipedema. And I have to say, I would never have gotten the results that my surgery have given me. Like, I wouldn't have gotten those results from the GLP-1 alone. I would have continued to lose weight in the areas that I maybe didn't want to before I ever would have seen the results that I want to see in my legs. And it's getting better. So who knows? When I come back to you a month from now, we might see that those numbers are creeping up on the surgery side of the house. So as you're going forward in your journey, I'd love to hear what you decide to do, whether you think that a GLP-1 can be a really healthy additive to your program and your journey with lipedema, or if you're trying to do things a different way and why. Like, I learn from everyone. I think none of us is as good as all of us. But of course, talk to your doctor. I'm just sharing my experience, not medical advice, but I'm really curious to hear how you're approaching this in your own life and in your own journey. All right, well, that's it for this video. I'm going to go up to the pool and really lay out, cover all of my little incision marks so that I don't get them all like dark, because that's what someone told me, like it's good for scar care. And I hope that you have a wonderful day and that you're out there enjoying the summer as well right now. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.